Terrific. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Staling. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here today with Homeless Leadership Coalition. We are so excited to have so many community partners joining us to hear from our guest speaker this morning, Jon Cray, he, him, who is the Residential Service Protection Fund Program Manager of the Oregon Public Utility Commission. And he is the dedicated Oregon Lifeline program manager, which is an exciting program that he'll talk more with us about today. Um, and since we have about 45 minutes to spend time together and we want people to ask questions and learn from Jon as much as possible, we'll be diving in very quickly. So again, this is a presentation hosted by Central Oregon's Homeless Leadership Coalition. We host many events, networking opportunities, as well as regular meetings, and we would love to see you at our upcoming networking event, and we'll put those details in the chat. We're going to be at Silver Moon Brewing later this month, and we'd love to visit with you all more casually there. So without further ado, let's welcome Jon Cray. And Jon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lindsay, and I want to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to Mosaic Community Health for facilitating this session. I'm really excited to provide this presentation on the Oregon Lifeline program to the coalition and to partner with you in providing the support to our Oregonians who are experiencing homelessness. So I have prepared a short presentation. I'm using a PowerPoint slide, which I will then forward to Lindsay after I update some links. And that way you're welcome to refer to it at any time. I also have my contact information at the end. So if you have any question that you may think of at a later time or you have concern, I welcome you to reach out to me directly and I will provide you with the support that you seek. Okay, so let me see if I can get the slide. Okay, and I apologize. I want to make sure that everyone can hear me clearly. Are there any, I want to make sure everyone, any accessibility issues, I want to make sure they're all good before we continue. Okay, great. All right. Let's see here. I'm not sure why. Okay, I figured it out. Okay. By way of background, the Oregon Lifeline program is a federal and state program. So the federal Lifeline program, you have that, and then you have the state which supplements the federal Lifeline program. The state program is technically called the Oregon Telephone Assistance Program, so collectively known as Oregon Lifeline. The Oregon Telephone Assistance Program is outdated because we now support high-speed internet service, whether that be in the form of data or high-speed internet via your home internet. So the Lifeline program provides a discount on phone service or high-speed internet service. The federal government provides $9.25 in support for high-speed internet service, $5.25 for phone service, whereas the state supplements that with $10 either for phone or high-speed internet service. We do not have a subsidy amount that differs for the type of service to which the subscriber subscribes. Lifeline benefit can be in the form of a discount on an existing service provider's service, or it can be in the form of free prepaid wireless service, which many of you know as Access Wireless. So the focus of today's presentation is to talk about the free prepaid wireless service. Okay. So At this time, Access Wireless is the only provider in Oregon that provides free Lifeline supported service. Okay. As a result of receiving $9.25 from the federal government and $10 from the state of Oregon, they offer unlimited voice minutes and 5 gigabytes of data as a result to qualifying households with low incomes. Yeah. There is the common misconception that the Lifeline program actually subsidizes the phone so that it's free to the end user. Actually, it's Access Wireless that incurs the expense of the phone. They offer it at the company's choice and expense. So Access Wireless uses the T-Mobile network to provide the service. So in other words, they are a reseller of the T-Mobile network. So to find out whether Access Wireless has coverage in where the customer resides, you can visit their website and enter in the zip code, and it will let you know whether coverage is available. While coverage may be available, there are certain areas of the state where coverage may not be complete. It may be spotty in some areas. Yeah. So now we talk about the application process for the free service. Yeah. All right. Access Wireless preferred online. Okay. Online is easy for the company, okay, because if there is an address that the company flags as already being used and the new applicant is trying to use that address, then it automatically requires the new applicant to complete a one per household worksheet. However, I do understand that that's not always possible in certain scenarios. So we also have what we call a secure document submission that is an online portal that's secure. Okay, the customer can complete the application manually. Okay, sign it, complete the household worksheet if necessary. I will go into detail about the household worksheet later. Okay, then you can upload that application. It can be a single application or multiple application at one time. You will have to provide your email address. However, because it's being submitted via the secure portal, Access Wireless does not use that email address for any other purpose. And then you can upload it to the company for pre-processing. You also have the option of faxing the application to the company or mailing it. Once Access Wireless receives the application, they will process it and they send us a file to us every Monday. Okay? We receive that file. We will check for duplicates. Okay? If a true duplicate exists, then we will deny the application. Otherwise, the the file that Access Wireless sent to us is sent over to the Department of Human Services to check to see whether the applicant is receiving or participating in SNAP and Medicaid. If they are, then they are automatically approved. If they are receiving benefits aside other than SNAP or Medicaid, we will manually review those applications to verify their eligibility and then report the outcome of our eligibility decisions to Access Wireless that Thursday. Access Wireless then prepares shipment of the phone on that Friday. And delivery then takes place within 5 to 7 business days, if not sooner. Okay. So I want to talk about the regulations or the parameters of the application. Okay. The federal regulation governing the program require a valid U.S. Postal Service residential address. That can be a challenge, especially for individuals experiencing homelessness. So, however, the Federal Communications Commission recognizes that. And what we do as a commission, we do allow our applicants to use a family member's address, if permitted to do so, a friend's address. If those two are not an option, they can use a shelter address, provided that that shelter address can be validated by the U.S. Postal Service. They can also use a Department of Human Services office address if permitted to do so. They can use a community health address. So there are ways that the person experiencing homelessness can apply for the program despite not having a residential address.
I just have a question, John, real quick about that. For a client that might just have a housing voucher for a year and doesn't have family members to, or, what we've done in the past is just use our like nonprofits, like our JBarJ address. If that doesn't match like their DHS address, is that going to be an issue with the application?
It should not be an issue.
Okay.
It should not be an issue as long as the address that's being used can be validated.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, okay, if someone is already using an address, okay, so for example, a shelter address, okay, they will need to complete a one per household worksheet. The purpose of that household worksheet is to self-certify that although there are other customers using that address, we are part of a separate economic unit. So in other words, we are not sharing expenses and income. It's separate and distinct. So for example, roommates, okay, that would be one example, okay, or shelters or community health organizations and so forth. Likely the household worksheet will need to be completed. What's important is that the address that's used on the application matches what's on the household worksheet. If someone puts in homelessness or general delivery at their residential address, Access Wireless will not process it. So it's important to have a valid address in the residential field on both the application and the household worksheet and that they match. Of course, we can have a PO box or private mailbox, or I think general delivery can be used for mailing address. I have to look into that, but just wanted to emphasize those aspects of the application in the household worksheet. Okay, so if there's information that's missing or the customer did not initial each of the terms and conditions, or if they didn't sign the application, then Access Wireless will not process it. One of the frustrations for me and my team as well is that Access Wireless does not follow up if there is missing information on an application or does not notify the customer or the person supporting the customer of deficiencies with the application. So that can cause delays, which is why later in my application, I encourage our stakeholders to reach out to us to ask for the status of the application, especially if you've not received any contact of any kind, after 2 weeks. Generally, if you do apply online and you provide your own email address, you should be receiving notices via email. Yeah. So in my presentation, I have links to a sample worksheet in a sample household worksheet, and it had, like in those comics on the paper, it has these bubbles, so it indicates what's necessary and it gives guidance on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Now, upon receiving the phone, okay, the person must call Access Wireless and provide the last 4 digits of their social to activate the free service. This is a requirement that our commission implemented many years ago because we observed an issue where customers who had been approved would move and the phone would be delivered and the new tenant would take possession of that phone and use it. And the government would be reimbursing the company for the service when it was not being used by an authorized person. So this is one way to ensure that the phone is in the authorized person possession. Yeah. Now, we do require the applicant to have a social security number. That can be problematic because I don't know if any of you were familiar with the Affordable Connectivity Program that ended last year. Okay, both the Affordable Connectivity Program and Lifeline was so similar. So people had a tendency to conflate the two as one when they really were separate and distinct, despite the similarities between the two. The Affordable Connectivity Program did not require a social security number. It allowed for other forms of proving your identity. Okay, whereas the Lifeline program is much more stringent. Okay, however, there are ways around it. Okay, what I mean by that is, okay, so for example, if a household has a child who's receiving Medicaid and the child has a social security number, we will use that to qualify the household. But if you run into situations like that, please feel free to reach out to me and then I will provide you with guidance on that. The other thing about the service is that it must be used at least once every 30 days. Otherwise, Access Wireless will enter the customer into a non-usage status. They will have 15 days to cure after their 30-day period. At the end of the 15 days or after 45 days, they will be de-enrolled and will be required to reapply. Yeah. So the ways they can show usage is making an outbound call, sending an outbound text, and using data. So as I mentioned earlier, we welcome our stakeholders to reach out to us after 2-3 weeks for the status of an application, especially if the customer has not received the phone or not receive any other type of notice about their application. So this is our group email address. Many stakeholders contact me directly, which I certainly welcome, but I do worry when I'm out of the office that not when I worry that when I'm out of the office, you're not getting prompt service. So you're welcome to use my team's email address. I am part of that email address, so I may respond and provide you with the support while my team is responding to customers on the phone, processing applications, and so forth. Okay. One of the things about Access Wireless is that they will not replace phones that are lost or stolen. However, because the quality of the phone is not as robust as other brands such as Samsung or Apple, okay, we have observed that it can malfunction. So if troubleshooting with the company is not successful, the company is required to replace that phone. Okay. Otherwise, if it's lost or stolen, the customer will be required to bring or purchase an unlocked compatible phone that is can be used in a 4G, 5G network, and that network is GSM. I think Verizon uses CDMA, but T-Mobile uses GSM. Yeah. Now, okay, let's just say, for sake of argument, okay, the phone is lost or stolen, okay, and that happened, okay. I just encourage our customers to make every reasonable effort to secure the phone. But in some cases, it's just not, it's sometimes unfortunate situations occur, okay? So one of the things you can do is just wait until the customer enters into non-usage and then reapply, and they will get another phone at that time. Or if they do bring or purchase a compatible unlocked phone, then Access Wireless will send them a SIM card. Yeah. I will talk about the June 1 effective date when Access Wireless is slated to stop offering free phones, but I'm going to go ahead and finish up my presentation and then accept question, and then I'll talk about the effective June 1 date. Okay. We do offer discounted service. I'm not going to go into detail about that because the objective is to talk about how we can provide support for our individuals who are experiencing homelessness. But when you do receive this presentation through Lindsay, then you're welcome to peruse it at your convenience and reach out to me if you have any questions about that aspect. One thing I did want to mention, I don't know if Comcast is in Central Oregon, but Comcast has their own program called Internet Essential, and I think their lowest price per month is about $15 for high-speed internet access service, and we do inform customers about that program because it is quite economical, even more so than with other companies that do participate and provide the discount. So Comcast can be more economical just based on how they've structured their program. Okay. So other important information. Okay. So federal and state regulation limit the Lifeline benefit to one per household, regardless of whether it's free or discounted service. Some people are under the impression they can get both, but when in reality, that's not the case. Yeah. Okay, on the customer's anniversary date. So when the customer is approved, that is their anniversary date. So for the forthcoming year, we have to recertify their ongoing eligibility. So what we do in that case is we will do a database dip, is what we call it. We send information to the Department of Human Services for yes, no. If they're receiving SNAP Medicaid, yes, then they're automatically recertified, meaning that the Lifeline benefit will continue uninterrupted. So there's no action on part of the customer. If DHS comes back with a no, then we send a recertification form to the customer to complete and sign and include supporting documentation of participation in other qualifying programs or provide income documentation showing that they are eligible through the income guidelines that are 135%, that at or below 135% of federal poverty levels. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you, and I welcome any questions, comment, concerns anyone may have.
Thank you very much, John, for that presentation. I've seen one question in the chat, which really spoke to your previous slide about the annual recertification. If there are other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or use the Q&A feature on this event. We want to make sure you get your questions answered. And I know some of you have been using this program. So if you have any scenarios that you think are common that you'd like to make more visible for others in this webinar, we'd really welcome that too. John, Kyle Fitzgerald asks, what prompted the change with not supplying phones? So that's in reference to a potential upcoming change effective June 1st.
Yeah. Okay, let me, yeah, what prompted the change? Okay, well, all right. There is a bill at the legislature, okay, that will enhance the Lifeline program, okay? The, whether that bill passes is to be determined, okay? So, okay, we have an agreement with Access Wireless, okay? Okay. Our administrative rules require the company to offer unlimited voice and unlimited data to receive $10, okay? Access Wireless states that from an economical perspective, they cannot comply with that rule, which in essence are minimum service standards to qualify for $10 in reimbursement from the state. Okay. So for the past 3 years, they've had a waiver of that administrative rule, a partial waiver. They do provide unlimited voice, but they only provide 5 gigabytes. Okay. The FCC required the minimum of 1,000 voice minutes and 4.5 gigabytes of data. Yeah. So, and we have a surcharge that supports the provision of this program, okay? The surcharge is capped at 35 cents, okay? Right now it's at 27 cents. So if the bill passes, okay, in which the Oregon legislature wants to make enhancements to the Oregon Lifeline program, okay, we can't support those enhancements and the provision of the $10 to access wireless because our surcharge is capped at 35 cents. So that was the reason why we did not extend that waiver to access wireless, because the waiver was, okay, we will give you a waiver, but you have to offer a free phone to customers, okay? Because access wireless in a majority of the states in which they participate in the Lifeline program, they do not offer a free phone. Many companies similar to Access Wireless have stopped offering a free phone due to the increasing minimum service standards that the FCC has imposed. Okay. Historically, it used to be 68 minutes, and then it went up to 125, then 250, and then 500, 750, and stalled at 1,000. But it was started at 68, but that was company based. It wasn't a minimum standard that the FCC set up. It wasn't until it got to 250 when the FCC said, okay, we're going to establish minimum service standards, because they saw that companies were reaping the benefit of the subsidy that's intended for the recipient. Okay, so I do recognize the concern about the lack of a fund for the population that we serve. So I was talking to Lindsay before my presentation, and I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but I was talking to Lindsay, and I'm going to explore options where we might be able to extend that through the end of the year. I can't make any guarantees or promises, but if I'm able to make that happen one way or another, I will certainly communicate that to Lindsay, and then she can inform the coalition and all community partners, because I do realize that this is a disadvantage. And I want to figure out a way that we can strike that balance, especially with the forthcoming enhancement if the bill passes, if while also providing the support that's needed to this for this community.
Thank you, John. We appreciate your advocacy and the deep knowledge that you bring to how this program is supported and how it has been changed over time. I'd love to highlight or reiterate a few key points I heard in your presentation while we wait for some more questions. One thing that I heard is that there will be no outreach if an application has missing information. That could be something as small as a missing signature on one line. So partners should not should double check the applications prior to submission, because if they are incomplete, they will not be processed and people will be waiting for no reason. I also heard you talk about the importance of the household worksheet. And I wondered if you could maybe repeat that information, since so many of our clients are people experiencing homelessness and they are using an agency address or the address of a friend or family member.
So just to clarify, did you want me to go over that part again, or?
Yeah, if you could reiterate when to use the household worksheet for people experiencing homelessness, that would be helpful.
Sure, okay. Um, Let me see if I can go back on my presentation, and maybe I can pull up um, the link, and I'm hoping that everyone can see it. Okay, all right. So I'm going to open up the sample application in hopes everyone can see it. Okay, can everyone see it?
We can't. You may need to stop sharing and reshare, or because Zoom doesn't, it's protective. It doesn't want you to accidentally share something you don't want people to see.
I see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I will share my screen one more time. Okay. I wish there was a way I could share my entire screen rather than just limit it to, but
Mhm.
I will figure out how to do that after this presentation, okay, for future reference. Okay. Can anyone see the
Yes.
application? Okay, wonderful. Okay. So, all right. So this is the application for the free wireless service, okay? Okay. So we provide guidance, okay? So, okay, so I need to correct a misstatement I made. We do not accept general delivery, okay? So that's my mistake. So please remove that. All right. So we do not want customers to use nicknames, because when we send their file or application data to DHS, okay, what DHS does is it looks for a match in the legal name. It looks for a match in their social security number and a match on their date of birth. So it's important that that all matches. Okay. However, it's not to say that there haven't been issues in that regard where the customer actually did provide their legal name, but it did not match DHS. But fortunately, we have access to DHS records that we can see that the customer complied with the application requirements, but there, I don't want to use the word discrepancy in DHS, but there have been situations where we can identify that it's the same person. It just, like, for example, I had a customer whose name was Kevin, but he applied with his legal name John, but they had Kevin. Okay, but if that happens, we will work with you on that. Okay. All right, in terms of residential address, cannot accept homeless or general delivery. Okay. We must have a valid US residential address. If that is not feasible, a shelter address that can be validated is acceptable. Community health organization address that can be validated, that's acceptable. I did say shelter addresses. DHS office addresses, that is acceptable. Okay. So that's the first part of the application. Okay. Now, a majority of our customers do receive SNAP or Medicaid. So that means they do not have to provide any supporting documentation. So that makes the application all the more simple. And they can move on to section D as in David. Okay. We cannot accept X's or check marks. They must initial each box. If they even skip one box, Access Wireless will not process it. These are the terms and conditions that the FCC requires that each customer initial, and it has to match their legal name. So if they use, let's say, I'll use mine. I say Jon Cray, but then I go in there and I do JW is my nickname. Okay. Well, they're gonna go, no, that doesn't match. So it should be JC. And we need a signature of the applicant. A lot of times customers have put in their date of birth in this field. If you can see my mouse hovering, okay, that has happened, and Access Wireless will not process it. So that has, I think that is splitting hairs, but I can understand why, because the federal government does subject them to rigorous audits. We are subjected to rigorous audits because of our eligibility determination for the federal dollars to the companies. But I digress. So making sure that they use today's date is important. And then finally, the last page is just information about what the company offers. And of course, they do not have to provide proof of identity if they are receiving SNAP or Medicaid. And now I'm going to share my the household worksheet. And I'm going to click on that link, but I have to share it. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
click the link, then share.
Okay, here we go.
And I see a few more questions in the chat. I'll make sure we get to those.
Okay. Sample household worksheet. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. New sheet. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Share. Just confirming everyone can see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so the household worksheet, okay, the first half of it just describes what a household is, what constitutes a household, and what does not necessarily constitute a household, or instead, what constitutes separate economic units within the same address. Okay. So we need the customer to complete section 1, okay, and it must match what they documented on the application. Then, okay, I particularly don't like this diagram, okay, because it's modeled after the federal worksheet. We try to make it as simple as possible. Okay, So the first question is, do they live with another adult? Okay, if they do, okay, they will answer yes. If that other adult gets yes, and then it'll ask, do you share money or income? And if it's yes, then they can apply. But most people don't do that. Okay. So in the case of a shelter or community health address or any DHS office, okay, the best thing to do is to answer yes to number 1, yes to number 2, and no to number 3. And then initial A and B below. And then have the applicant sign and use today's date. That's the best way to do it. Okay. Now, if you have a situation where they do actually have a physical structure in which they live, okay, and it's unlikely that someone else had used that address, but you want to fill out the household worksheet just to be on the safe side, you're welcome to do that. Okay. We just try to, we don't want our partners having to complete more paperwork than is necessary. But I can understand if you want to be on the safe side to ensure that the application goes through without issue, then go ahead and fill out the household worksheet. And in that case, then feel free to say, do you live with another adult? Okay, that depends on that person's situation. So you would answer yes or no, and then answer the other questions accordingly. And then, do they get Lifeline? Then you can say no, and then only initial 1. I've had issues with Access Wireless where they would be a little more stringent in terms of, well, they didn't mark yes, they didn't mark no. I'm like, but they initialed A and B, so please process it. So if we run into that scenario, I will certainly address it with the company. I tend to look at it from a common sense approach. So it's the
We
same thing, like if
we
someone
appreciate
signing, yeah, if someone signed their date of birth, okay, I pick my battles. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Thank you, John. We have 3 quick questions I'd love to get to in our remaining time together. The first question is, if a person has a phone already, are they able to apply just to get minutes or data?
Okay. If they have a phone already, okay, they can certainly apply. Okay. However, that phone must be compatible and unlocked. Okay. And it has to be GSM compatible. Okay. If you go to the Access Wireless website, okay, just accesswireless.com, in the upper right, it'll say phones. Click on phones, then click eligible phones. And then you can type in the IMEI number of that particular phone to determine whether or not it's compatible. Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
And then it gives you a little instruction on where to find the number if you need it. So hopefully that answers Ryan's question. And then I lost my chat, so the next question from Chris, if a person doesn't have a phone, do they need to apply before they get a phone? And will a phone number be provided?
Okay. Okay, if they do not have a phone and they are in need of a phone, okay, absolutely apply. Okay. And then after they are approved, okay, Access Wireless will ship it. And Access Wireless assign a phone number to that
Perfect.
person. Okay. However, it doesn't mean that the person, if they have a previous phone number that they want to port, over to access wireless, they can certainly do that. But if you want me to elaborate on that, I'm happy to do so. But generally, access wireless assigns the phone number.
Yes. Given we don't have a lot more time together, I think we'll pause on that question. But if it comes up, you have a client who would like to port a phone number, then I would email John and his team at the email that was provided in the presentation, and I will drop it again in the chat for the group. Last question, and then we'll have to say goodbye and get off to our Friday mornings is there a fee for SIM card replacements?
No, there's not a fee for SIM card replacement. No.
Great. John, your expertise is always so valuable, and I have to thank you on behalf of so many Mosaic Community Health patients who've benefited from this program, thanks to your advocacy and your, as you put it, common sense approach. So we're so grateful for every time you followed up on applications for our patients.
And again, thank you for hosting me. Honor and privilege to talk and meet with each and every one of you and to provide you with the support you need on behalf of our common client. My team also had the same level of dedication and commitment. So feel free to use the group email address or email me directly or give me a call. Thank you again. And again, please do reach out if you have questions or concerns. We will be sure to provide you with the support that you seek.
Thank you so much, John. I see applause and hearts in the chat. Our gratitude to you and your team. Thank you so very much. And for those of you who are HLC members, check out the link to our upcoming events and trainings. And for those of you in Bend, we'll be having a happy hour at Silver Moon Brewing in a couple weeks. So check that out. May 15th, Silver Moon, 4 to 6:30. We can visit with each other. John, if you come over the mountain, we'd love to have you there too.
Well, thank you so much. If I do come over the mountain, I'll certainly reach out to you.
Great.
Okay.
Everyone have a great Friday and a terrific weekend. Thanks, everyone.